All right, everybody. Game Cooker US Rocks VR here. Um, don't know if I got sound here. All right, good. I'll put a little music in the background. I don't know how loud it is, but I guess we'll see. All right, I guess that's good. Jay, can you go downstairs, please? I'm busy, and you cannot have that door open, letting the heat up here. Just grab what you gotta grab and go. And shut the door, please. Sorry. All right. Anyway, um, the kids are like running around all over. It's like 85 degrees today. Feels like summertime. So I don't know how loud this music is, but it seems pretty loud in my ears. All right, so I'm basically gonna this will probably be my last dive into this whole path tracing overdrive thing for at least a little while. Because I did plenty of videos on it. Um, Somebody made a comment to me on my YouTube channel. I wasn't exactly sure what they meant because they didn't really explain. But they said one of the videos that I made, I don't know, it took them back like 10 years in their mind. So I wasn't sure if they were just being nostalgic or if they were like criticizing or picking fun at my video. Um, I don't really make any money off my channel, despite what you all might think. um, Number one, I'm not popular. Number two, Google never really um, puts my videos out there. And people don't usually like watching long videos. So, um, and to be honest, I use like software that's like 8 years old to do my video editing. So I don't have Adobe. I don't have DaVinci or any of those because I can't afford those. You know what I mean? If somebody wants to gift me some good um, editing software or buy me a subscription to Adobe for a year, then I'll try to learn it and do things a little better. But for right now, this is how I have to do things. Now, sorry, but I can't put these things. I wish they would make it so you could hide the top bar here. It's like I never understand why they don't have a hide bar at the top, you know what I mean? Because if you put it in full screen, it's going to go full screen. You know what I mean? Anyway, um, so basically I'm going to try to run through this quickly. I took a bunch of screenshots recently um, with the path tracing overdrive on and regular ray tracing ultra on. I tried to get the same scene, but of course, like in this picture, the lights change color. So um, probably because I was just hurrying through, I didn't think about it, and there's two different colors lights in the scene here, so it's going to be kind of hard to compare the two. But what we can do is we can zoom in like this on some things, and kind of examine the pictures a little bit. So this is with Path-tracing Overdrive on, and this is with it off. Okay? This isn't daytime, and this isn't nighttime. They're both nighttime. Okay? So you can see the first thing that you can notice is how bright the global illumination is from this light on all the surfaces, right? Because this is very bright. So it glows everything like within the vicinity around it. Now this one's also bright, but it's not as bright. But with the regular ray tracing, you don't have that global illumination where, say, the light's bouncing off this wall and then that's bouncing, you know, down to the ground or something like that. Same thing with the reflections here, right? You can see the reflection of this thing here and the reflection of this thing here. Now, because the ground is wet, there is distortion here, but there's more distortion here, right? Because obviously the water is moving, right? Whereas this one has a ripple effect, but it's not really like reacting to the movement of the water per se, whereas this is, right? This is reacting to the surface condition, where this is just kind of reflecting, and then of course it knows that there's rain on the ground, so it has to put a distorting effect on it. You know, there may be some real-time rendering somewhat, but it's not going to be as drastic as this. What else do we have here? It's kind of hard to pick out things because, again, the pictures are different. Plus, when you have a lot of rain, it you know, makes it a little harder to examine the pictures. So this is probably not a good demonstration. Plus, you know, the cars are dynamic too. They disappear over time. So we'll go to the next picture here. All right, so this one here is a little more drastic. Again, nighttime. This time I tried to wait for the light to come back the way it was. So here again, you have the glow of this thing shining all over the place, right? It's shining on the trees, it's shining on the road, it's even shining across the street here. There's a, you know, the glow off the street. You have the reflection off the cars here. You have the lights, the blue lights over here reflecting off the sidewalk, but they're distorted, right? Versus the ray tracing, which kind of is a little distorted, but it's not as it's more clean, you know what I mean? Also in the ray tracing side, you can see it's not as bright. You know, like it will cast some shadows, but not many. Like especially here on these cars, you can see there's a shadow cast here, but there's nothing really here. Right? You have a light that's actually being shown underneath the car, which is not accurate. Right? Yeah, so that's pretty much the difference there. So you can see this actually looks better on this side. Like if you were in a city and this was in the city, then it would be really bright like this, right? It wouldn't be this dark. Because, you know, you have all these lights too, right? So these lights aren't even really shining down on the ground here. But these lights with the Path-tracing Overdrive are shining light down. Whereas these are just fake lights, I think. They only go so far and then they don't really cast any shadows or anything. So let's go to the next picture here. This is another one that shows quite a contrast as well. So we have a person that's down here, right? So this is Path-tracing Overdrive. This is Ray Tracing Ultra. Now you might be wondering, well, why didn't I use this Ray Tracing Psycho mode? Because it really doesn't change much. I mean, it makes things look a little bit cleaner, you know, but it's not going to cast shadows where it's not, where the regular Ultra is casting shadows. You know what I mean? So here you can see that she's on the ground and she's casting a shadow. The gun is casting a shadow. And of course, this is not a static object, right? Because, you know, I'm the one who downed her, right? So it may be that's the reason why she's not casting a shadow here. I'm not sure how they programmed the game or how they tweaked it. You know, but you would think that they would just have real-time shadowing, right? But the problem is that some of the lights above, and I should have probably taken a picture of what was above. For some reason, they only get activated when the overdrive is on. So, you know, then you have the real-time shadow. Same thing here with the trash can, right? The trash can is casting a shadow here, but not here. Even underneath, see? No shadow at all. So that's a pretty stark difference there. Now this one's a little more less noticeable. Oh wait, what happened here? What did I do here? Oh. Oh, okay, yeah. Right, okay. Right, so the text didn't show up on this. So this one's interesting because normally the Path-tracing Overdrive is brighter than the Ray Tracing Ultra, right? But in this case, the lighting is different. So therefore it's rendering it a little bit differently. Right, because here the car is blocking the fire, the light from the fire. So you only have the glow, right, that's around it. So this one kind of glows underneath the vehicle, off the side here. You know, right here for some reason. Now it could be because the flames are different in each picture, obviously. But it's harder to tell a difference in this one, right? Like here her shadow's a little different, right? Like here her shadow's a little cleaner. Right, but here the shadow's more distorted. Right, because she's further away from the light source. But in this picture you have this object casting a shadow. I guess that's what, or maybe that's her leg. So they're casting the same shadows here. What else can we look at here? See, this one looks like there's shadows casting from everything. Like here, 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 and but not as pronounced here, right? You have the glow off of here. So there isn't a lot of difference here, so they might have tweaked um, these effects a little bit better, you know, to reflect how things are supposed to, supposed to glow. Here you can see the pink here is less pronounced, whereas here it's very pronounced. Back here there really isn't a whole lot going on, probably because it's too far away. So it's not going to really do much there. So that one's not as pronounced. Now this one's quite a big difference. So we're back to no shadowing hardly again. So here you got the main flame in the car, right? So you have it glowing this way and out through the doorway here. And then you got a shadow on the door, right? Shadow here. Because you have the glow is like going up off the ceiling and down again. Okay? Whereas over here, you don't really have much of a shadow here, if any at all. You have the glow going under the car, which doesn't make any sense. Right? And there's no shadow really cast here. There's one here, but the light really shouldn't even be there. I mean, again, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. The flame might be just a little bit different, but this is obviously not casting a shadow. You know, like, you can see the shadows here, but not here. So there's quite a big difference there. You also got these neon lights back here. We can see what if they're doing anything interesting. They don't seem to be really doing anything, probably because they're just too far away. You're not really going to see much of a difference there. So mainly the car here is where you're going to see most of the difference here. Shadows are casting over here. Whoops. Even here there's a shadow, but no shadow here. So that's a pretty big difference there. So here's another one that's kind of hard to distinguish any difference. I'm not sure, like, you know, what is going on with the lighting in some scenes. You know, if it's even rendering the path tracing here, like, you kind of wonder, right? Because it doesn't really look like there's much difference between the two. I mean, here you got the bottle. It's more distorted than this one. I mean, here you got a shadow coming from this thing. A lesser kind of a shadow there. You know, here it just seems like there's a big glow, you know, so there isn't much difference in the scene. So we'll go to the next one. So here you have some differences. So here you got these white lights here, right? Like this has more of a glow, right? A bounce off the wall here. Whereas this one's lesser, right? Even on the ground here, it's only got really a main reflection here, right? There's a little bit of glow off to the side, but this one has a lot of glow because, you know, it's bouncing not only down, but off this thing down on the ground here. So, same thing over here. You have that glow on the ground, but not really anything here. on the regular ray tracing. So this whole scene here is brighter, right? Because you got both of these lights casting onto the ground here. This one really isn't showing much of that. I mean, it's obviously lit up a little bit, but not as much as this side. So that's quite a big difference. Over here, you also have a difference. I'll try not to zoom in too much because it's going to kind of distort it. So over here, you can see the reflection of the sign here is more crisp, right? It's not as fuzzy. This is more fuzzy. This one, the bottle, is reflecting, but this one, the bottle's not reflecting. Okay? Same thing here with the wall, this pillar here. There's a little bit of reflection here, but it's not really wrapping around it. Right? So this is overall darker. Right? Because here you have the light reflecting off of this pillar back to the wall and off the ground, also lighting up the area here. So this is overall darker, right? There really isn't much back here that we can probably see because it's just too far away. You're not really going to see much. Nothing that I can notice. I mean, over here you do have a shadow. There's a kind of a shadow here, but it's not as pronounced as this one. This one's actually following a set pathway here. So something is glowing over here, but it's not reaching all the way around. This one's more uniform. So that's the differences, right? This is like a kind of a faked reflection. This is more of a real reflection that's taking in the environment to account for the shadowing. So I think that's pretty much all really to see there. Here's another one that has a big difference. Mainly shadows. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see. So this is the path tracing. All these barrels have shadows. These pallets have shadows. Right? This thing here has a shadow because there's a light up here and there's a sign here as well. So you can see there's all shadows here, and then when you turn on the ray tracing, there's no shadows at all. So I mean, you could say that, you know, well, they just need to bake that in there. Well, that's true. You know, I'm not gonna argue with that, but they just, for some reason, didn't do that. Maybe because they just feel this is just props. You know what I mean? Like it's not something that they figured you're gonna stop and look at. You know? Let me make sure there's sound. For some reason, didn't do that. Yeah. But with path tracing, you don't have to worry about that, right? You just implement it, and it does it. The other thing that you notice here is this red light versus this red light over here. Oops. Very annoying. See, this is very glowy on the ground, and this one's not as glowy. You can also see here under the sign, although, there we go. The shadowing here is probably more accurate of this ledge, whereas this one is like way out here. I mean, if that's what it's reflecting. I'm assuming it's reflecting the ledge there. This is just more brighter here because the sign is obviously right there. So that is more bright. So that's kind of reflecting accuracy there. What's going on here? So here's another scene that we can probably see some differences. Again, we're outside, so it's a little harder to pinpoint things. But if we zoom in on the car here, again, we have a shadow under the car, but no shadow here. So the path tracing is casting a shadow here, and no shadow on this one. What else? Yeah, some things are just a little harder to notice. Depends on where you are, right? So it looks like they got shadows casting under these trash bags. So that's probably baked in, most likely. You got shadows here that are darker. You know, even under the car here. Over here you got nothing. I mean, looks like they tried to do something here, but it's not really accurate. In here there's a shadow, in here there's not. So that's accurate. In here you got light reflecting on the inside the car, whereas on the path tracing you only got it where it would probably be seen. What else here? So in the path tracing on this red light here, you can see the ray tracing is really like making this red here and here. Here it's a little softer, which I guess would make sense because you got this white light here with these red signs. So the white light would diffuse some of that red light. Right, it would interfere with it. So this light here probably is not even really reflecting any shadows or anything. It's just like a dummy light, just for decoration, I'm assuming. Oh, what about the people back here? This is really looking far back, so there's probably not going to see much back here. Yeah, once you get so far, they just you don't see any shadows at all. I mean, the reflections, you know, you can scrutinize those, but that's just kind of hard to piece through there. So we're going to go on. I think we saw pretty much. Now this one's interesting. Again, this is another instance of the path tracing is darker than the regular ray tracing. So the ray tracing side is exaggerating everything, right? So let's zoom in here. So on the regular ray tracing, you have this, whatever this is here, exaggerated. You have whatever's going on here, which doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. This is exaggerated, right? And then you got the light on the metal here. I'm not sure if that's coming from the ceiling or what. But this is not reflecting anything on the metal. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. And here you can see the shadows are real cut, right? Here they're softer. Because again, the light is from a distance, right? So you're gonna have the fuzzy edges. And this, whatever this light is here and here, it's not as pronounced. It's more distorted, more spread out, right? It's dispersed. I'm not sure about the girl. She doesn't look like she's got a little bit of a shadow, but it's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, there really isn't anything about her except for, I mean, this one just looks like more clear, you know, I guess you could say. But again, the lighting on the walls is probably more accurate. Like I said, I don't know what this is here going on. That's really weird. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a difference there. So let's move on. The next one is good too. So there's a really big difference here as well. So right off the bat here, you can see the path tracing. Let me zoom out. Is casting shadows here and here, but not the ray tracing side, the regular ray tracing. You can also see it's darker here and here, but not here. You can see that there's a glow on her back heel from the light here, which is probably should be toned down a little bit. But you know, you can see the glow on the ground here from the sign. This one's kind of like pretty dull looking. And the textures on the ground are, again, also just, you know, just too clear, you know. There's no light distortion. What else do we have here? So here you got, it's glowing quite a bit here. But here you have, the lighting is kind of selective. So I'm not sure if there's a light behind her. Maybe it's just on this side. There might be something there. It's kind of hard to tell. But this one looks better with the exception of her heel here, which is just too bright. What else do we have here? Yeah, it's hard to tell over here with this thing. Oops. Darn it. So you can see this one's clear, the reflection. This one's distorted, which is usually the MO for the path tracing, right? There's also shadows here, but none on the regular ray tracing side. Same thing here. You have like a dark shadowy spot, but not on the regular ray tracing side. You know, this wall over here is brighter than this wall. So that's a difference there. Again, this is a wet ground. I would say probably focus on this part right here. You have a little more of a glow on these red lights. There's more reflection on the path tracing side than the ray tracing side. Yeah, there's no vehicle there, so you can't see the vehicle. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get always accurate, exact same shots because you got vehicles moving and everything else. I'm just trying to look for any differences. But it's kind of hard to tell, you know, any stark differences here. Just a few minor ones. You know, this is kind of bright here, whereas this one's a little bit darker as you get further away from the light source. So that might be a little more accurate. All right, let's move on. Alright, so this one is a lit up walkway. You know, you can see the path tracing is a little more fuzzy. Hey Amar, what's up? You can see these lights are just a little more bloomy. These are a little less bloomy. Because there's so much light in this pathway, everything is lit up. right? And the shadows kind of disappear in the lighting a little bit. Whereas the ray tracing, there's no glow on the walls, and these shadows really don't fade until you get just way down here. And that's probably just because they fade as you go off in the distance, I would imagine. So there's quite a big difference here. You have a lot of a global illumination here. So that's pretty much all in that one with the lighting. Here's another one that has a big difference. So here you can see with the Path-tracing Overdrive, you have a nice shadow under here, a kind of an even glow. You got a shadow in front of her, you got a shadow behind her, and a shadow behind her, right? But there's nothing over here except for a shadow in this direction, which I guess is coming from that red light. So you got really no good shadow under here. There's just like this dark line. No shadows on her, no shadows on her. So yeah, you can tell a big difference there from the, you know, the seat also is lit up a little more than this one. Again, that's because the light is refracting off of everything. So when you have shadows, that's, you know, much easier to tell a big difference between the path tracing and the ray tracing, right? So alright, so we'll go to the next one. Some of them are difficult to tell a difference. So this is the Path-tracing Overdrive. This one's the RT Ultra, Ray Tracing Ultra. So it's kind of hard to tell really the difference in these two pictures, except for, I don't know. It's not as easy to tell here. So I'm not sure how the lighting's working here. They may not have, they may have to work on this area, I guess. But this is one instance where you can't really tell a big difference. Same here. This one's a little brighter than this one. This is the overdrive. This is the regular ray tracing. So here you have a lot more of lights shining on the ground, you know, bouncing and then also shining, bouncing up here. The reflection in the water doesn't seem to be really much different as far as I can tell. You have some kind of shadowing here, whereas on the ray tracing side you don't really have much of a shadowing here. So that's pretty much all I can pick out there, you know, without spending hours. So there is a difference, you know, the global illumination is working. Again, here's another scene outside. So it's a little difficult to really pick out, you know, a big difference when you're looking at such a large scene. I mean, the light's refracting off the ground a little bit differently on this side than is on this side. But again, it's hard to find a big difference. I mean, the RT side is going to be more clear in some cases, like this water's clearer than this water. Well, this reflection here, this, you know, because that's just what ray tracing is going to do, because it's not really refracting the light the way it's supposed to. So there isn't too much difference here. I mean, there is a difference with these lights, you can see. These are a little bloomier. These are a little less bloomy. This light here doesn't seem to be changing much. Probably because, again, it's off in the distance so far. You're not going to see much. So yeah, this is another one that was hard to get like an exact shot. But this one looks better than this one. Like if you're in the game, I remember this one looking better than the regular ray tracing. It's just the light here is dispersing much better. You have this thing reflecting here. This thing's also reflecting here. You got these lights off in the background reflecting. They seem to be reflecting a little more accurately. This red light here is glowy, more glowy here. This one's less glowy. Yeah, so it's a little hard to tell unless you're in the game. This palm tree is reflecting on the regular ray tracing side, right? But this one's reflecting a little bit more. Same thing with this. This is another one, another tree, I guess. So it's hard to tell a big difference, but this one definitely looks better. I remember in the game. Again, here's another outdoor shot, which I didn't get the same color over here, so there's going to be a difference. So we're probably not going to spend too much time on this one. I mean, I'm trying to see if there's any kind of like extra shadows going on here. Like there is a shadow on this little pole here, but there's none here. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell a big difference here. Unless you look at like, you know, stuff like the pole here, which is actually casting a shadow. Yeah, anyway, we'll move on to the next one. Yeah, this is just the skyline. Kind of hard to tell the difference there, too. You just have the lights off these palm trees here, which are reflecting a little bit differently here. So the light's being dispersed differently between this picture and this picture. But it's kind of hard to tell much of a difference here. So we'll move on. So this one you can tell a difference here. So you can actually, if we make it bigger, you can see the difference. Now this is the same, like this is only taken like 2 seconds apart, right? Like a couple seconds apart. Now here you have a car off to the left. 2 cars like appeared, and so we're gonna ignore those. Pay attention to like this area here. So this is the Path-tracing Overdrive. Again, that global illumination at work. So you can see there's shadows in the overdrive, but no shadows in the regular RT over here. See, there's shadows. Shadows here. This light's bouncing off the ground here, so it's reflecting back there. So you can see the difference. This one looks better. So let's go to the next one. I'm not sure if there's a big difference here. This is the start of the game. I started another character just because I was messing around. So it's kind of hard to see a big difference here. I mean, if we make it full screen, see, it really isn't much of a difference. Oh, duh, I got the same picture. What in the world? What do I got? 2? Why is it changing now? Oh, I don't know what I just did there. Sorry. So there is a difference. I don't know what I had the same picture. So there is a difference here. So you can see the room is lit up here with the overdrive, right? And there are some shadows being cast off the people. Subtle. So you can see the difference here. So you have that global illumination going on. The light here is also different. So same thing here. This one's a little odd. So this is the overdrive. So take notice of these red lights here. Right? So these lights are shining in this direction. Right? So this light here should be shining that way. You know what I mean? So that was kind of interesting, I think. Again, you have him casting shadows on him. Right, the shadows here are casting properly. Whereas ray tracing, it just seems like it's just kind of trying to guess where they might be. So this scene is obviously better. You got a light overhead that's shining down on the table. So that makes sense. This one's basically the same, global illumination. The lights are more bloomy. They're shining more light down. Whereas the regular ray tracing, it's kind of toning it down. You also have the reflection here from the room. Whereas the ray tracing, it has it, but it's not reflecting the light per se. It's just reflecting the objects. So the Path-tracing Overdrive is reflecting the light that's coming from these two side rooms here. So that's interesting. Same thing with above. See the reflections here. Whereas the ray tracing is just doing the basic reflections, but not, you know, not the natural from the world. Here's another one where you have Overdrive has the reflections here, right? The illumination. Right? Even the computer screen are reflecting here. They have a shadow. The chair, the desk, the wall. Here you have a shadow, but it's like just a basic shadow. You don't really have the light, you know, glowing all over the place here with the ray tracing. It looks pretty dull. When you put the two together, it looks very dull. The regular ray tracing. You know? Like it really brings the overdrive really brings the environment alive, you know? So here's another one where there's a little bit of a difference, mainly the global illumination. The shadows are softer. The ray tracing is also casting some shadows. But you have the light, you know, glowing up the whole room here. This thing's more bloomy. This is more bloomy with the overdrive. The ray tracing is, I guess, reflecting this sign off of these here. Whereas the path tracing is much more subtle. So, yeah. So you do have like the light here in between the rails, whereas the ray tracing you do not. So it is reaching here. Up here you have the green light reflecting. With the ray tracing, it's just a very kind of dull green. Here you got shadowing up on the ceiling. With the ray tracing that disappears. So yeah, the overdrive definitely is doing something different here. Even though in some cases you might say, oh, the floor looks clearer there. But with the path tracing, it's not so clear. Well, that's because it's, you know, a lot more, the light is going into a lot more places. You know, where it's supposed to go, I would imagine. Here's another one, same deal. You have more light bouncing everywhere. With the ray tracing, you know, everything just gets more dull. You know, like the scene just becomes so bland. You know, like without the overdrive, you just kind of like look at this and go, oh, the game looks real nice. But when you put on the global illumination, it really just stands out. So here you got, with the RT, this light's not reflecting. Neither is this green. I mean, there's a little bit of green there, but it's not very pronounced. With the overdrive now, you have the blue light bouncing off the railings. The ambient light out here also is bouncing on the railings. The green light is bouncing on the ceiling here. Whoops. And you even have, like, over here. Oh, you can't change it. Even over here is being affected. So you have the light on the railings. And the RT is just kind of like shining the red more directly. So here's another one here. This one's mainly shadowing and soft shadows. So here you can see there's shadows on this guy, the palettes over here. I'm very tired. Here you have light shining on these boxes, but the path tracing is not showing it. right? So this light should not be reaching this, I guess, this part of the box because of these in front. It is in the path tracing, you are seeing it here and here and here and just a little bit here, and that other sign up top here is reflecting here, right? But with the ray tracing, this thing is much bigger. It's all over the place, right? And with the path tracing, you have the global illumination over here. So you can see the difference here, right? There's shadowing up here with the global illumination, whereas with the ray tracing, there's none. So the path tracing, I think, looks a lot better overall. Overdrive, path tracing. You know, some people like dark scenes, you know. Here's another one here, outside. Now this one I thought was interesting. This is path tracing. And this is regular ray tracing. You can see here that there's some reflections are not showing here, whereas with the ray tracing it is. I'm not sure why. Ray tracing, there's no real shadowing going on here. With the path tracing, you have the shadow under the mattress, under here, under here. You have this sign here reflecting on the ground. This light here is glowing down on everybody and the trash cans and trash bags. It's even, now the ray tracing has it going on the wall here and this trash can. But the path tracing is kind of spreading out that light. Whereas this is making it more direct. I'm not sure why. I would say the path tracing the overdrive looks better. Okay, so here's another scene in the alley. Again, same deal. Overdrive, regular ray tracing. You just have more shadowing with the overdrive than the RT. More global illumination with the overdrive versus the RT. Not sure about what this light is here on this. I would say the overdrive looks better. Here you have the light reflecting off this sign post here. Whereas the ray tracing just has it like right here. In fact, they don't have it at all. So the light that's on around the corner here is shining on that. So you have off-screen lighting, right? Now here's the scene that's further up. So again, here you have shadows in the path tracing, right? But no shadows on the ray tracing. path tracing has this fire brighter, and it has the trash bag has got a little bit of a shadow. The reflection here is a little bit blurry, whereas the ray tracing it's more crisp. You got the dark back here behind the trash can, but nothing with the regular ray tracing. So then we'll go on to this next scene. So this next scene is basically the similar. You have the, oops, global illumination. The shadows are more fuzzy back here. You know, everything, the lighting is just different with the overdrive, see? It just looks better, I think, with the overdrive. So this is overdrive. That's regular ray tracing. Overdrive, regular ray tracing. You know, in some cases you could say, you know, the models will look better with the regular ray tracing, but, you know, what are you gonna do? See, so there's like some kind of darkness here for some reason. I guess because they figured the car is there and this thing's here, so it's blocking the light. But the path tracing wants to do more dispersed lighting. So in the car here, basically same thing. Of course, the guy's getting in the car here, so that kind of cut off the outside there. So with the overdrive, you can see his shadow is more defined. Overall, you have the light shining through the car more down here. The back of the seat is dark. You know, everything's overall darker. Again, ignore him because he's moving. So, yeah, I mean, it depends on how. I think this looks better. Because you got the blue light there, you got the light up top. So it makes more sense. Like this light's not even shining on the top of the seat here with the regular ray tracing. Same even outside. So this one's a little harder to see. So here's the overdrive. You can see the lights shining all over here. Got a lot of light out here behind him. His face is darker because he's, you know, that's behind the light. Or, you know, there's no light shining really on his face. His arm is shadowed here. So with the ray tracing, his face is dark, much darker. Chest is dark. Now, notice this light here, right? That's reflecting off the car. Right? It's bouncing off the car onto his forehead. The ray tracing has this kind of dark here. Like this light is not really shining all over the place anymore. It's like, I guess, fake lighting. Whereas this is actually now shining all over the place. Like you don't see any of the light here at all. But now you do with the path tracing. So that makes sense. So here's another one. You can just see a slight difference. Overdrive. The shadows are more soft. There's more global illumination going on. Whereas the ray tracing, everything gets dark up top here. With the overdrive, you know, you got this light shining underneath here. Whereas with the ray tracing, you don't. So overdrive, or overdrive, sorry. Regular ray tracing. So the ray tracing shadows look more sharp. And this light's not reflecting anywhere except for where it is right there. Whereas now it's reflecting under here and kind of more further out. So that's the difference there. So here you can't notice a whole lot, but you can see the reflections are more, like this guy over here is casting a shadow. He might too, but barely. Yeah, so they're both casting shadows with the path tracing. With RT regular, ultra, they're not casting any shadows. Overdrive is blurring these reflections a little, because you know this is an uneven surface, whereas the ray tracing again is making them much more crisp. Yeah, so these shadows are softer. Like there's a shadow behind here, softer there, but they're more drastic with the regular ray tracing. Right? With the overdrive on this light, it's more shining on the ground a lot more down here than with the regular ray tracing, see? So this is overdrive, and that's ray tracing. So it's not really casting too bright. So same thing here. Everything's brighter because there's lots of lights on the ceiling in this parking garage, so it should be much brighter, right? You got shadows, you got reflections here from the cars. This red light is reflecting on the ground here. Much fuzzier, but it's there, much brighter. I don't know why this isn't as bright. So these lights are not really shining down as much. Like this light's shining on this pillar here and on these machines here. But this light is not really shining on these surfaces anymore with the regular RT Ultra. Yeah, there's definitely a big difference there. This looks way better, and it makes more sense in this really lit up parking garage with all these fancy cars, right? Here's another scene, same deal. These lights apparently do not shine very well or at all with regular RT. But with the path tracing, the whole garage is lit up from those lights. And of course this reflection is more pronounced now. Whereas here it's barely visible. So that's interesting. So the light's even shining off of these bumper things here. Same thing here, you got shadows from the reflections from the cars, shadows. No shadows with the regular ray tracing. Right? Path tracing, you got a shadow here on this pillar. But nothing with the ray tracing. Same thing here, shadow under the car, nothing with ray tracing. So that's pretty unfortunate. Same thing with the lights here, reflecting off this wall here, but ray tracing, there's barely anything. So again here the path tracing looks better, probably doing its job. Now here's an interesting one. Now you would think that there's not much difference, right? When we played the game without path tracing, we saw everything was good, right? Let me turn down the music a little. But here we got my reflection and the car's reflection with the path tracing, but nothing with regular ray tracing. You even got this pillar reflecting off the ground here, off the tile. Whereas with ray tracing, I don't really see much of anything. So that's quite interesting, huh? So overdrive, reflections, regular ray tracing, nothing. So that's pretty crazy, huh? Same thing here with the overdrive. Now this is not daytime, but it's like early morning. So it's still not quite super bright outside, but there is some sunlight showing here. But here's the overdrive, here's the ray tracing. Overdrive, ray tracing. I think the overdrive looks better because there's a lot more contrast in the environment. Whereas the ray tracing, like he's got like this light on his face and arms, which I don't know where that's coming from. The ground looks more like blue and uniform. Whereas with the path tracing, you got the different colors here showing, and then his face is casting like better shadows, his pores and stuff, his skin complexion, you know? It's not just like washed out bright. So I don't know what, I'm not sure if that's the sunlight or there's a light overhead somewhere that the path tracing is illuminating everything with. Yeah, it's interesting, like the ray tracing here is putting shadows here. You know? You can see here there's like contrast between this side and this side on that pillar. Whereas here it's all uniform. There is no like difference in lighting. So I'm not sure if that's this glow over here that's on that or if it's a sky. Because it seems to be over here too. Up here. That same glow that's here. So it could be from the sky. This blue light seems to be shining a little bit of light over here, whereas the ray tracing is doing nothing. Here you got some, again, a lot of blue light for some reason. But with the path tracing, you got the shadows in the corners here. So I think the path tracing looks better. And this is just a top side shot, which is not really good because I didn't keep it the same. So we'll just skip that. So here's another one with the shadow differences, right? So ray tracing is just kind of, there's no shadows here with the overdrive, but when you turn it to the regular ray tracing, there's no shadows over here. This one has a shadow with the overdrive, no shadow with the ray tracing. Also, you have this light here glowing up to the ceiling here. And it's kind of spreading out over here too. With the ray tracing, they have these things shadowed out for some reason. Not sure why. And they have this shadowed out too. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But you can see this light over here also is glowing this thing up pretty good. With the ray tracing, you know, it's like darker. Now Jackie doesn't really have much of a difference here. So again, I think the path tracing looks better. Here you got the same thing with the shadows. Like RT in the dark versus path tracing. Right? This looks better because this light is being dispersed. There's a shadow here which gives you kind of depth. I'm not sure what this light is here, but the path tracing doesn't seem to really do much with that. So the whole environment's much darker. Whereas with the path tracing, you have this glow up on the ceiling and across the wall here. Plus you got the shadows. Yeah, so it looks better. This looks dull. That looks better. So Overdrive again looks better here, in my opinion. We still on? Hey Wabo, how you doing? Welcome. Yeah, I mean, if you know, when you're just playing the game, you kind of can miss a lot of stuff, right? I mean, the game without ray tracing looks very nice, but when you look at these side-by-side pictures, you know, you're going, oh my God, like, wow, yuck, that looks horrible, you know? When before you were like, oh, that looks so nice. So here again, we have the global illumination. Here's overdrive. Here's the regular ray tracing. Now, Jackie's shadow hasn't really changed, so the ray tracing is doing that okay. But we're pretty much the same thing, right? With the overdrive, you have it glowing this whole area. So is this over here. You got a shadow under the car, maybe over here. So yeah, I mean, no shadow here, but you got shadows here now with the overdrive. The box here is casting a shadow in the corner properly. Whereas with the ray tracing, it's just kind of making something up, I guess. Guessing. It's funny here too. Like you have this, I don't know what's glowing here. I guess it might be this light over here. But the path tracing is saying that this light is probably coming from here because this machine here is casting a shadow. So it's blocking that light. So that's interesting. So same thing here. You have a lot of shadows and global illumination. You know, you got the, I'm not sure what's going on right here. But you have the outside, which is lit up, shining in on the carpet. You have this thing shadowing. You got the desk shadowing. You even have Jackie over here. He's got a shadow. Right? So if you put these wires have a shadow with the overdrive and everything's kind of illuminated, right? The desk. But when you put on ray tracing, it's like, what is this light? The light is shining down on the ground, which doesn't make any sense. You lose all this shadow here. You lose all this shadow. Jackie's shadow's gone. The desk has a shadow, but it's kind of looks like it's baked in. So again, Originally, you probably would say, oh, this scene looks really nice. But when you really put it the way it's supposed to be, you're like going, oh, wow, that looks better. The overdrive. You know, overdrive, regular RT. Overdrive, regular RT. So here's another one, which is same basic deal. You got this light here glowing everything over here. This light glowing Jackie. Um, you got this wire here that's casting somewhat of a shadow in certain spots. But when you enable the RT, you know, you lose all the natural, you know, global illumination here. There is still like a shadow on this wire. Jackie loses his shadow. This light becomes more crisp. And you don't get the glow over here. Like this whole area, right, is getting glowed by this thing, right? It even got a shadow up here, which I'm not sure if that's how that's working exactly. I guess it's shining down here and bouncing up that way. And then this is making its way over here. But with the regular RT, you lose all that global glow, right? Even on the ceiling here, this light is shining up here. You kind of lose that too. Yeah. So I mean, some people like darker scenes. And you could say, well, that looks pretty good, but this looks better. You know? Same thing here. It's just from a different direction. Mainly this way you can notice the global illumination again. There isn't really a whole lot of shadows from this direction for some reason. But here's the overdrive. Here's the regular RT. So even in this room here, you lose the light off of here. Right? Because there's a light in this room. So that's off screen and that's shining over here. But you lose that with the ray tracing. So I wonder if the ray tracing only uses like whatever light it can actually see. You know what I'm saying? Again, I don't know how they program it. Whereas with the path tracing, you know, it's I don't know how it's calculating, but I guess it's calculating either backwards or forwards. A ray bounces, it figures out the angle, then it bounces and then it figures out that angle. You know, maybe it's doing that kind of a thing, where the ray tracing on the other hand is just probably a hybrid of like real-time lighting and some baked in stuff, you know? And the real time only knows what it sees. You know what I mean? It doesn't know like what's behind here, right? Like it can calculate like what it sees right here. I'm using my hand. You know? But it only like bounces maybe in one direction, like boom, boom, and that's it. Maybe. Whereas the path tracing is like boing, 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 you know, all over the place. So this is a good one too. This is a real good shot here. Right? Again, this is overdrive. Right? There's shadows here. She's got a shadow there. He's got a soft shadow. She's got a soft shadow. You know, I guess you can look everywhere. and then you lose all the shadows. Look at that difference. Isn't that crazy? And this is with ray tracing. It's like, wow. I mean, you lose pretty much all the shadows. I mean, yeah, there is a little bit of a dark area there and a dark area there. I mean, even this like thing here, I don't know what it says. ELVTL. I don't know what it says. But even that's glowing. You know, it's kind of, well, maybe that's just because of the contrast, right? But all these textures just stand out. Look at that. I mean, that's a really nice looking scene compared to that. And again, that's with ray tracing. That's not, you know, vanilla. This is supposed to be ray traced right here. Even the light back here that's bouncing from whatever light source is down below is up here. But the ray tracing is not bouncing any light back here from down below or up above. Even this light over here is like illuminating this whole number 2. Whereas the ray tracing is just doing like the top of it. You know? That's crazy. Even way over here. I mean, look at that. You got this thing shining off of the wall, then whatever is over here that's lit up is shining off of these windows. Crazy, huh? Here you can make out all the textures. Well, you know, not everyone, but you know, the main ones. Whereas here it just gets kind of just bland. Here you can see the top of the book easily, but here you can't. So yeah, that definitely looks way better with the overdrive. Even the smoke. Look at the smoke. The light's not even like refracting off the smoke. So here's another one. Not a really good one because there's people like walking. So the scene's always changing. But if you look at her, that's why I have her kind of the same. Like that's overdrive. And that's ray tracing. So in this scene, you would say probably the ray tracing looks better. I mean, I would say it looks better. But that's because, you know, this person's there casting a shadow, you know. So maybe I got this backwards. Not sure. I might have. Oh no, this is the overdrive because she's casting a shadow. So there's one over here too. Right? This is casting reflection here. Got reflections here. Yeah, so that's the dead giveaway, really. See, even here with the overdrive, it's kind of dark here. I don't know what lighting this is here. But it, you know, obviously the overdrive doesn't think that it should be reaching here. So there is a bit of a difference here, but this is subjective on how you feel about how it looks. So here's another one that is a big difference too. So this one looks better in the overdrive. So this is overdrive and this is RT. Again, you can see the reflection here on this guy and this girl, but it's so bright in here that it's like dispersing that shadow. You got a shadow under the mattress. This kid's reflecting here and here. This door is reflecting here. Now with the RT, a lot of that kind of goes away. There's no shadow here anymore. You just have like a fake one here, I guess. The cart's not shadowing anymore. The kid's reflection's gone. You don't have the reflection of the sign here anymore. This just gets, I don't know what's going on here. It's just getting just dull. So again, this one looks better. Everything's illuminated. I mean, the sign is changed a little, but I mean, it's not that much. So there's a big difference here. Again, here's Jackie. Overdrive, right? He's got shadows on his face. Arms. You got reflections here on the table. I don't know if that's going to change. You don't really see too much in the background. I mean, there's the cop shadow here, but I'm not sure if that's going to change. You got the lights on the steps here. The light up here. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. You got a shadow here with the overdrive. So that disappears. The cop shadow disappears. Jackie just doesn't really have much lighting reflecting like across his face. I mean, they did put some here under his brow. His skin's bright again. Again, he's got a lot of lighting, you know, shining on him, whatever's back here. This green light or whatever it is. But with the RT, it seems like that light just kind of goes away. I mean, it seems like there's a little bit here. But with the overdrive, it's kind of spreading out. Even in his ear and on his face here. But that all goes away with the regular ray tracing. So yeah, I think the ray tracing just doesn't do much with off screen or something. So here's another difference here. So the overdrive here, the main thing that you'll notice is the color. Like, there's lights all over the place around me, right? You can't see off screen. Right? Plus you have the yellow light here, you got the machine there, you got the red lights behind me, which are reflecting off of his, what do you call this thing? I got a mental block. You know, off of his coat thing. You got shadows here on the piping, although I don't know if that's going to go away. You got some shadowing in the corner. You know, you got the red lighting here, the red light there. Kind of some lighting here. That's a different color. The yellow light here. The pink light there. And then when you turn it to ray tracing, wow. I mean, look at that. All you got left is this light and the red that's behind me reflecting off of the sign. But really, it just gets so dull. There is a shadow still here with the ray tracing. That might be baked in, I don't know. So it definitely looks better with the overdrive. I mean, that scene looks way better than that. See, even the pallet back here that he's sleeping on has a shadow. But the lighting is like reaching underneath there, which it shouldn't be. And then I think this is the last picture. Same thing here. Overdrive, you got her shadow. You got the light reflecting off of everything. Kind of dispersing all over the place. You got the outside light here. That's casting her shadow. It gets dark over here in the corner where there's less light. So with ray tracing, you don't have you have reflection here and here and a little bit here, but you kind of lose it, and right here. And you lose her shadow, and you lose the outside lighting, right? Like the outside is shining in here, so all this is dark. These steps here. But with the path tracing, you know, you have right here just in the corners, and as you go up, it gets lighter. And of course, you got a nice glow here. Like you got this whole orange is kind of blending in all the way over to this one, and it's blending spread out here. It's bouncing off of here back onto the can. You know, you lose it on the can though, right? Because this is like probably just a light here. It's like boink, boink, boink. That's it. Like that's all it knows. And it doesn't really know what's happening out here. See, the global illumination, you can make out much more detail. Even the can is casting a shadow. You can see the crack real nice here. Yeah, the lighting just really brings out the scene, right? So, yeah. So there's definitely a difference. I mean, you know, I know some people make fun of it, but I think a developer would rather have path tracing than have to sit there and worry about baking shadows and lighting everywhere. I mean, that must take an extremely long amount of time, you know? Whereas if you just implement it, right, as a plugin, and it calculates where the light's, you know, coming from, and then from there it just does all the work for you, right? Anyway, I guess that's all I got to show you. Thumbs up for path tracing. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Peace. I didn't notice that this thing was offset here. Crap. It wasn't even full screen? That's weird. Alright, bye.